Dante wrote, "The path to paradise begins in hell." Join Deacon Don Prendergast and David Fortin as they discuss the tools men need to build the domestic church and the spiritual weapons to defend it. This is Through the Fire.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Through the Fire. I'm David Fortin, joined as always by my partner in crime, the former New York City detective, Deacon Don Prendergast.
Hey, what do you mean partner in crime? What, we got something going on, man?
I don't know. I mean,
we got a thing?
You
got something to do?
No. But
okay.
This is going to be a good episode, I think, because we got one of my closest friends out there. But Deacon, I want to ask you to read something from the Book of Sirach.
Yes.
It really kind of sets up the show.
Yes. Well, yeah, actually, all kidding aside, we do have something very serious to talk about. So we'll start off with, from the Book of Sirach, chapter 11, verses 29 through 34. And this pertains to careful choosing of friends. Bring not every man into your house, for many are the snares of the crafty one. Though he seem like a bird confined in a cage, yet like a spy he will pick out the weak spots. The talebearer turns good into evil. With a spark he sets many coals afire. The evil man lies in wait for blood, and plots against your choicest possessions. Avoid a wicked man, for he breeds only evil, lest you incur a lasting stain. Lodge a stranger with you, and he will subvert your course, and make a stranger of you to your own household.
Thank you, Deacon. That sets this up because joining us in this episode is one of my closest friends in the world. He's been with me from the beginning on our podcast along the way. He's my producer on that show, / co-host. Let me introduce Deacon Dave Imhoff.
How you doing, Dave? How you doing, Deacon?
Hello. Brother Deacon.
We are doing well. Dave, just so people know, there was at one point in my Catholic faith journey that I had thought about walking away, but it was you that actually extended your hands to me and asked me to give you a hug as a brother, and that one act kept me Catholic. So I want to, right out of the gate, say thank you. We've also been involved with the Knights of Columbus, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode, a lot of the stuff that the Knights of Columbus do. So I want to thank you for that, and just introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, my name's Deacon Dave Imhoff, and I live in Connecticut. I'm an ordained deacon, as I said, and my pastor calls me a baby deacon. It's only been about 18 months since I've been ordained, so I'm coming along, learning. I'm retired from the, I don't know, it's about 35 years of aerospace industry.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend retirement and my new career of serving the church in many ways, Knights of Columbus and a deacon.
You're also so very involved with the Knights of Columbus, and that's really what you and I have focused on. I mean, we've done a lot of podcasting and stuff together, but you really have used the media to promote the Knights of Columbus. You've used Days of Reflection to promote Father McGivney's charisms. So how did you come to become a part of the Knights of Columbus?
Let's see, it was my neighbor who eventually invited me to be. I was invited a number of times, but when I was younger, I joined maybe about 20 years ago, so I'm 66 now, so it was late in my life that I joined. And my father was a knight, so I had the insurance, and the insurance agent would come to my house, and he would come and say, hey, you got this and that, and review whatever insurance that my father had purchased for me. And anyway, he would invite me to join, and I would say no because I was too busy. And in retrospect, I think that obviously was a mistake. But I was busy with the kids and all their activities and my career and all this, so I just didn't have time. Eventually, my neighbor asked me, and I joined, and I haven't looked back. I got involved. I worked my way up through some of the officer positions, and I served as a Grand Knight for a couple terms, 2 different terms of 2 years, so a total of 4 years as Grand Knight. I've done other officer positions. I was a district deputy, which you work with several councils and help them. You're their guidance. And I assumed some statewide positions of faith director and spiritual reflection chairman and other things. So that's how I got involved and worked my way, to be well involved.
Yeah. Deacon, would you say that at one point the Knights of Columbus were thought of as just a bunch of beer drinking? They had their detractors, but now that they've taken on more of a spiritual component to them, do you think that the Knights of Columbus have changed, or do you think they've returned back to Father McGivney's original plan?
Yeah, I think the latter, definitely. Bless McGivney had a vision of the Knights of Columbus to include a very strong faith component, and just as things evolved, and the Knights would need a place to meet, and they didn't always have the facilities in the churches that we have today, for example, and they ended up acquiring building spaces, and that led one thing to another. It needed to fund itself, and bars and things like that, and halls to be rented, and almost a business,
right?
Versus just the principles of Knights of Columbus of caring for, being charitable and taking care of our brothers, and our community.
Right.
So Deacon Dave, I'm also a Knight. I wonder how many people actually understand what the Knights of Columbus is, because my father also, he was a Knight. I became a Knight back when I was 18 years old. So I was brought in as a young buck, along with my brothers. We made our final promises, if you will. It's almost like a religious community. We made our what we know as the 4th degree back when I was 19 years old. But I wonder how many people know what the Knights of Columbus are. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that. We know that in the beginning, we'll do the Genesis version. In the beginning, when Father McGivney was faced with the dilemma, being a young American priest in a parish in a far distant land known as Connecticut, he had the issue of how do we deal with the problem of widows and orphans if there was an accident at the factory or someone became sick, because the men were the breadwinners. And so the Knights of Columbus was a way of gathering the men of the community together within the Catholic Church and take care of one another. And that concern for the widows and orphans, as you had said, Deacon Dave, it developed into an insurance company, because men started pooling their resources together, and they were able to actually put together whole life insurance policies that could help out the widows and orphans should a tragedy befall the man of the house. And so that intertwining of community and parish life, that intertwining of faith and function, was kind of the genesis, right, for the Knights of Columbus, and it's grown so much bigger than that original parish.
Yeah, definitely. You nailed it. It's Father McGivney was in New Haven, and it was a very Irish population, and the Irish were persecuted in back in the day, 1882. Is when he formed the Knights of Columbus, and these men in his parish had some of the more dangerous jobs and careers. I don't know if you call it a career, but they were doing some more of the dangerous. So yeah, it wasn't far too. It was often enough that the father, the breadwinner, would be killed. Or die of some illness, and that would ruin and many times the families would be torn apart, and they would lose oftentimes their faith.
Right.
So Bless McGivney's zeal for the souls, wanting the families to stay together, and given options to or abilities to stay together and to retain their faith, as opposed to being broken up, sent
Right.
this one to this family or this one to this orphanage house and whatnot. So it was a faith motive as well.
Yeah, and so we're talking about a period of time in American history which was long, long before, FDR and all the social reforms and Johnson and all the civil rights. And this is way before all of that, before there was welfare, before there was Social Security. Really, if your family was down on its luck, so to speak, if your family or family members were destitute, the only place that you could turn to would be either other relatives, which is exactly what you're saying, Deacon Dave. So, you would have kids that would get broken up. It's like, well, I'll take Michael and I'll take Renee and I'll take this one and I'll take that one, but I can't take them all. I can only take one or maybe two. And so you have families where the kids would get split up and they would get shipped off to other family members. And now you're at the whim of whatever the religious donation, devotion or religious life of that family. And then, the surviving parent would have to work. And now you have the problem of, well, the kids that do stay with the surviving parent, who's watching after those kids? And the only place to turn would be the church. And we get that expression of, being on the dole. That expression kind of comes out of that understanding of that social system, social justice, Catholic social justice is what families were left with stepping into. And so we see over history, because I've known this, I've seen this myself. We see over the history of the Knights of Columbus, beginning with a parish-based group of devoted Catholic men who want to help out their community, who want to help out the widows and orphans, and then over time, it's sad to say, but over time, like so many of the other, let's call them fraternal community organizations, Knights of Columbus went through its own period of time where not much different from the Elks Lodge, the Moose Lodge, the Rotary Club Lodge or whatever. And then, you got the burden of paying those bills. So when was it? Because I know we don't really see Knights of Columbus halls around much anymore. And I know that there was a period of time when the top leadership of the Knights of Columbus, known as the Supreme Council, they kind of issued a decree that all of the local councils should make efforts to unload whatever property they were holding on to and be reestablished back in the parish the way it was in the beginning. When did that happen?
Well, there's still, we call them home corporations. There's still councils that have buildings, and so there's two types of councils: home corporation councils and parish-based councils. There's still some of those home corporations around it. I think it's been a bit of an evolution, or not. It's just slowly there's been a move away from the home corporations, and I have a specific experience with that.
That is a bone of contention with some councils.
Well, all right, you can blame me for bringing it up, but
that's okay. And I just want to correct you a little bit.
Yes,
Supreme didn't come down and say, we got to move away from these things. We shouldn't be doing these home corporations. Their ask was, okay, council, if you have a home corporation, if you're a home corporation council, evaluate, does the building help or hurt the mission of the Knights of Columbus? Is it adding to the mission? So is it absorbing your resources? Is it using the resources of the men that could do the charitable works that is really the mission of the Knights of Columbus, which is the number one principle of the Knights, is charity. Does it help it do the mission of charity, or does it hurt?
Okay.
And if council did that honestly, the vast majority, I would say, would come to the conclusion that it hurts in this day and age. It would hurt the mission. And in my particular council, that was our conclusion. It wasn't a unanimous conclusion, but it was a pretty close to a 2/3 majority that concluded that yes, this building is hurting us in executing the mission of the Knights of Columbus, and that led us, in my case, my council, to converting into a parish-based council.
Yeah, I mean, and you had mentioned mission. Might be good for us to share with the listeners that, there are kind of, I guess we can say that there are 3 pillars that the Knights of Columbus rest upon. Maybe in total there are 4, but for the most part, there are 3 pillars: charity, unity, and fraternity. And charity, like you said, absolutely. I mean, if it's about us, well, maybe our priorities are a little bit off. It's really supposed to be about the other, because that's what Jesus was all about, the other. And then the whole idea of unity, same thing with the church, one unified church. And then when it comes to fraternity, man, we're all in this together, And one of the things that I've seen in the Knights of Columbus that I really love is you find the most interesting people. I mean, people that you otherwise might not ever rub elbows with, but there's this unifying element, which is Jesus, that draws people together from all over the place. And it brings such a well-rounded body of experience and workers to put forth whatever the project is. And it's really beautiful. I did mention the 4th one in the Knights of Columbus. There is what's known as the 4th degree knighthood, which is, so the first 3 is charity, unity, fraternity, and the 4th one is patriotism. I also happen to be a 4th degree knight. And so patriotism is recognizing, and it's interesting because this is something that's kind of a little dicey in the context of conversations today, and maybe has been for a little while, but there is a recognition that our country, the United States of America, has been uniquely blessed by God when you see the opportunities and the orientation of our founding fathers and their belief and understanding that it is in God we trust. So it's really kind of cool how the Knights of Columbus have really embodied this genuine Catholic Christian American spirit.
Definitely, yeah. Those 4 principles, and the bedrock, the first key one, the most important one, is the charity, and of course, unity. We work together. We're stronger together. We work better together, even though we're different parts. It's almost like an image of the church that St. Paul uses of the body of Christ and the church, that we're all different parts. Some of us are hands, some of us are noses, some are toes, and etc. And we serve different functions, and we work together in unity to accomplish the goal. And it's a brotherhood, a fraternity, fraternal. So those are the key ones.
One of the things that that Deacon Don had brought up earlier, was that the Knights of Columbus is an insurance company. But it goes well beyond that because of the founder. The founder, Father McGivney, wanted this organization to not only take care of the charitable needs of the widows and the orphans, but it also wanted to teach the men the faith. So that's where I think it goes beyond just an organization being an insurance company. Deacon, you and I have worked so many times doing some of these days of reflection. And some of the things that have come out were some of the charisms of Father McGivney. Can you tell us a little bit about those charisms that made this man so great and put him on the path to sainthood?
Well, yeah. Off the top of my head, I can give you a few of them, but it all comes from, there was a beautiful book written about the life of Father McGivney, and it's called The Parish Priest. And, based on that biography, we've actually, I got to give credit to Father Ron Meyer, who we worked with to put on the first, I'll call it Knights of Columbus or Blessed McGivney retreat that we did. And he came up with a set of charisms, from his study of the parish priest, hard work, good prayer life, concern for others. These are all charisms or characteristics of Father McGivney's life, that personality that kind of should be or embedded in the Knights of Columbus. And that's the approach we take with these retreats, or use the term day of reflection. Originally, we were trying to develop a weekend retreat, and we did do several weekend retreats. And we found that, time and money are a barrier to entry, I like to say, for men to participate. And what we concluded is, if we boiled it down to a one-day event, that we'd be more successful in bringing men into participating in this. So at this Blessed McGivney, we call it now Blessed McGivney Retreat Day, we first examined the charisms of Father McGivney, and that's kind of like a foundational aspect. And then we go into the three main principles that Deacon Don had talked about, those three of charity, unity, and fraternity. So we would spend some time examining those principles, and that would be the basis of this day retreat. And by the way, we got one scheduled right now. My council is sponsoring that one, and we're putting it on, and was going to be at the what used to be called the Knights of Columbus Museum in New Haven, now called the Blessed McGivney Pilgrimage Center. So
we've had a number of times that we've been there. It's something special to be able to actually be right at the sarcophagus of Blessed McGivney, to pray there, to air your intentions right there. It's an incredible, and it's a beautiful church. I mean, it's an old church. You can hear the floors creaking when you walk. The pews creak. But you, Deacon Dave, have had the opportunity to stand right in the ambo where Father McGivney actually stood and preached. What was that experience like for you?
Well, going to an ambo and proclaiming the gospel is an amazing thing, period. In the recent past, we had one of these retreats at St. Mary's Church, where there, in the basement, we actually held a retreat in the basement where he met with the men, and the order was founded. And of course, his sarcophagus is in that church where we prayed around. But yeah, actually, I've never really thought of it that way, that ambo where I proclaimed the gospel at the Mass for that particular retreat was where Father McGivney would proclaim the gospel. So, it's a beautiful church. It's almost, in my mind, like almost close to a cathedral, and it's wonderful. And it was a great experience being there. But I wasn't connecting that dot that you just connected for me. So,
well, thinking about it now, I mean, it must be a humbling thought, the idea of that continuation of history, especially, as a member of the clergy, having that continuity of the gospel being preached generation after generation, and being able to be a link in that long chain, leading men closer and closer on the pilgrimage of life back home. I'm curious, in the little bit of time that we have left, and maybe we can talk about this more in the next half hour, what is it that excites? I mean, all three of us, we're all knights, but I'm curious to know from you guys, what is it that excites you, that motivates you, that drives you about being a knight?
It's just a good way to live out our lives as Christians. Jesus said, I give you a new commandment to love others as I have loved you. How do you love others? In reality, in our real life, how do you do that? There's many ways you could, but being a Knight of Columbus, where you are helping someone that you may not even know with the different charitable works that you do. For example, Coats for Kids is one of our programs. So the council buys coats, and they have a day. Usually we do it right around Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, just when the weather's getting cold, and kids come in and they pick out the coat that they like, and now someone in need. Sometimes, well, we do. I work towards that by helping raise money, but I may have not have been there that day that they passed out the coats. So I don't even know the little girl or the little boy who got that coat. I don't know them, but I'm loving them by helping them with what they need. To me, that's what excites me. And furthermore, I like to duplicate my efforts, to bring others along. And by, bringing others into the order and joining the Knights, and also to strengthening them by strengthening their faith so that they become more effective at doing that work.
That's all the time we have this week. Tune in next week at this same time for the conclusion of this broadcast.
Exciting stuff.
We got to leave it right there for now to continue our conversation about what excites us about being Knights of Columbus.
The preceding program was a Spirit of Truth Radio Arts original program for CastingThe.net.